Judy, how did we become such big sports fans?
I don't know, but I can tell everybody my brother is psychotic because I usually get photos like this when he's getting ready to go out on a date, or when he's on a date, I'll get Joe Cap pictures. It has been kind of funny because we have been sports fans our whole life, and I'm going to say unusual for little kids to be as big of fans that we are. Keep the same teams as our favorite teams.
Well, that's been a lifelong thing. We watched the Super Bowl together when we were kids, Vikings Chiefs Super Bowl IV. And weirdly, you went with the red team. I went with the purple team. And that has stuck forever to this day. And to your point, we still go to games. You go to Super Bowls. We've been to multiple conference championship games. We go to football games every year. We're big, fantasy football players. So it started back in 1969 watching football at mom and dad's house. It's continued until today. And again, just looking at your background, Judy, you got your Chiefs helmet there. I've got, there it is, my Viking helmet in the background. I just had a Viking helmet on. I had to take that off, by the way, because I was one head slap away from a concussion.
Which I know is a true story of things that happened to you. And I don't even know if it was a head slap that knocked you into concussionville.
No, it was not a head slap. It was a chin strap slap, which, well, Judy, we'll get into that when we get into the football
I won't let the
part
cat
of it,
out of the bag.
Let's talk about kind of how, again, you and I kind of got our start in sports. We watched Super Bowl IV. We became lifelong football fans, but we also started playing football. For me, it was going over to one of my friend's house, and we would play every day after school. And that's where we were doing toe drag swag before that was a real thing back in the day. And then you and I in our front yard playing catch every single day. And we had a big evergreen tree. We've got a great picture of you as a kid catching a ball. We would do just timing patterns in our front yard. We had that evergreen tree, so somebody would stand in the driveway. The other person would do kind of an out, an up and out, and the out was on the other side of the tree, so that was kind of a defender. So you and I actually got pretty good at doing little 10-yard outs.
I was going to say pretty proud of us for back in the day, and I'm glad that I was included in all of at least some of the sporting events.
Well, we talked about in one of the previous podcasts, sports kind of started for us actually playing sports at Perkett. And we talked about 5th and 6th grade basketball, played for the Perkett Panthers, and mom and dad coming to the games and mom cheering for the wrong team. And we got a big chuckle out of that. And I think she eventually figured out which team that Donny played on and got the cheering thing figured out. But you and I also played a little flag football or touch football back at Perkett in 6th grade, where they were kind of trying to get a little league going or a little, activity going. And I think you were the only girl on the team. It was just mainly guys that were playing touch football. I can't remember if it was flag or touch, but it seemed like it was touch. But I do remember, Judy, and you can jump in, one particular play where we had the ball. You were on the defensive side of the ball. You were playing edge rusher, outside linebacker, and we were the shotgun formation, and whoever snapped the ball snapped it really high to the quarterback, and you rushed and blitzed and intercepted the snap and returned it 47 yards for a touchdown.
I did, and it's funny because if I remember, I wasn't supposed to be part of that team. I was watching you guys all get picked, and somebody's like, oh, I'll take Donny's little sister on our team. And I got drafted before a lot of the other players. So I thought I was pretty accomplished at the time.
Once they saw that play, they're like, Judy can play. And then whenever we played after that, you were a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I was.
So then we transitioned into baseball. I did play some baseball back in the day, was never really good at it. But, I always loved football and tennis, and we'll talk a little bit more about those sports coming up. But Judy, I played midget baseball.
What? Wait, what are the...
Yeah, no, we had midget baseball back before midget was a bad word. We played, none of us, although we could have all been midgets. I guess we were all small.
It's not like Wall Street, let's throw the players against the wall or something. That was really the name.
Well, it sounds like a really weird, sick movie. Midget baseball. In theaters Friday.
Midget baseball after dark.
I don't think they call it that anymore. I got to tell you real quick about one of our practices, because again, I kind of alluded to the fact that, I wasn't that good. And we would practice over at Perkett, and I was usually in the outfield, usually the right fielder. Occasionally maybe I'd play a different position. But this one day, our coach, we're having tryouts, I guess, for catcher. or he's looking to see if he can find a different catcher. And he says, who wants to catch? And I'm like, Donnie's raising his hand out in right field. He says, come on in. So I get in, I come in behind home plate. I put on the catcher's gear. I catch a couple of balls and, they're coming in. And when somebody swings and you're trying to catch the ball, got to keep your eyes open. You don't want to blink. And one of the plays, I drop the ball or have a little pass ball situation where it goes behind me by a couple feet. Judy, meanwhile, I see somebody going from second to third. I'm like, somebody's stealing. I got to throw this guy out. So anyway, they got a head start. I've got the ball behind me. And then normally when you get the ball, you kind of step up and then you throw it over to third. The ball had kind of dribbled behind me a couple of feet. So I just grabbed that ball. I saw the guy running. I turned and I throw the ball as hard as I could to third. But standing in the way was the coach. And Judy, I drilled him on the side of the head. And he dropped down to one knee, stunned him. And I thought, oh my God, I just killed coach. And, this is a bullet on the side of the head from point blank range. And he's down on one knee. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm okay. And then he gets up. And then the next thing out of his mouth is, who else wants to try out for catcher? Come on, who else? And that was the one and only time that I ever played behind the plate.
It's a tough position and you have to be pretty good at throwing. I don't know if you remember, but before we had the pool in the backyard, you and I were playing in the backyard and you hit a line drive. I was pitching to you. Must have been when you were playing midget baseball and you drilled me on the side of the head from the pitch and I went down. We didn't have any safety gear or anything like that. But anyway, I must have shook it off.
Nowadays, you'd be like going to the hospital. It'd be like, we'd
Yep.
have to get you cleared to play again.
Yep.
But I believe in that situation that day, it was like a minute later. All right, let's go. Let's keep going. And Judy's over there, wobbling.
That's true.
So anyway, then made the transition from Perkett to junior high. And junior high is where you get exposed to football. For real. We did a little bit of the touch football at 6th grade, but 7th grade, they have flag football at Jim Hill. 8th grade, they have tackle football. In 7th grade, I tried out for wide receiver, and I think back then they called it flanker. And, played that the whole year for 7th grade. There was a guy on our team who played wide receiver that was the starter, and he's standing in the end zone wide open in our first game, flag football, and he dropped the ball. Easy touchdown. And I don't know if you remember, Judy, back in the day, especially back at 6th grade, and it started with dodgeball. Because if you caught the ball, the other person that was throwing it was eliminated. Well,
Yep.
I was great at catching the ball, so I thought that would translate to being a flanker in 7th grade. Well, I thought it did, but, I never really played that much, so it kind of ended up being a little bit of a bummer, and I just sat on the bench a lot, or just played in B games. And guess what? In 7th grade, that's not a big passing game.
Right. Well, and there's not a lot of programs to play for B team players.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had the junior highs, so we would play Ramstead and we would play Memorial, which was at the Air Force Base. That was it. And then I think we played the other B teams. 8th grade is when football started for real. You got the pads. You got to try out. And what was funny about that, Judy, is first day of tryouts, padded football in 8th grade, 130 kids. Everybody's trying out for football. Everybody wants to play football. Well, by the end of the first week, after you take a couple of hits and you play a little bit of football, those 130 down to 80. 50 people had quit because they couldn't, take the hit or take the punishment or the grind or the practice. And the practices back then, it's like training camp. They would put you through these grueling practices. And in the middle of the summer, when we just started school in September, it'd be 90 degrees outside and we'd be doing, kind of 2-a-days before school starts. But that's when I played quarterback and made the transition. I'm not going to be flanker anymore, Judy. I'm going to be the quarterback. I started off as the 7th string quarterback. And you probably have to wonder, are there that many strings? Well, yeah. And for quarterback, there were 6 guys ahead of me. Judy, within a couple of weeks, I went from 7th string to 2nd string. You know how I did that?
Well, I'm going to guess not arm talent.
No, I was not known for the arm. Memorizing the playbook. I had the whole playbook memorized. And the coaches were impressed by that because the other quarterbacks, the 5 that were ahead of me or the 6 that were ahead of me, I think one of them had done his homework and knew the plays. I could actually go out there and the coach could say, hey, do this play, and then I could call it in the huddle, or I could even call a play or 2 on my own in the huddle. I got really good at that. So I went from 7th to 2nd string. And I did have some stats that year, Judy. My stats are extremely, extremely interesting. 3 out of 18 passing, 18 attempts. I completed 3, but 6 interceptions. Judy, I
Wow.
completed twice as many passes to the other team than I did to my team.
Oh my God.
I don't think we had the quarterback rating back then, but if they did, mine would have been negative.
I was wondering if you were going to talk about your friend Todd that would wander down the street in his Vikings uniform that he had. And before you even started playing sports in 7th and 8th grade in football, and your friend, he was wearing a Vikings uniform, and we'd playing on the side of the house, and he didn't get dirty enough, and he's rubbing dirt all over himself.
We used to watch those Viking games back in the day when they played outside and their uniforms would be all muddy and full of snow and dirty. And of course, we got clean unis. I remember I got mine over at Arrowhead Shopping Center, I think in Tempo, and my jersey. I don't even know why they were doing those jerseys back in the day, but my jersey was a Gary Larson, number 77 Viking jersey, which what the heck? Why didn't I have Tarkington or somebody cool? But you're right, Todd, before we would play, he would find a mud puddle or, a pile of dirt and would go over there and put his hands in it and then start rubbing it all over his uniform. And we hadn't even started playing yet, and it looked like he had played 3 hours in a mud bowl game. Judy, one other sport that I played a little bit, you and I both played, was tennis. And we had one of our neighbors that actually taught us tennis, Lyle, from down the street. He took us over to Oak Park. We didn't have tennis rackets. We had a couple of rackets. He took us over to Oak Park, taught us how to play tennis. Mm-hmm. And what's kind of funny about this story is that he wasn't very athletic.
No, he played chess, for Pete's sake.
He did.
Yeah,
I think
you
he was
don't
a state
correlate a
champion.
chess player with, a tennis player. But
yeah, he ended up
very,
excelling
very
at chess. And he got really kind of bummed out because he taught us how to play tennis. And the first day that we were learning it, we were beating him. We were drilling this guy on the first day. And guess what? He never took us out again. That was the only time we ever played tennis. Then our folks bought us tennis rackets, and we got into tennis and started playing. And if I wouldn't have been into football, I think I could have played tennis, was actually decent at it. Played in the 1979 North Dakota Open tennis tournament. I took 6th place. What happened was I got put into the consolation round because my first match on a Saturday morning, Judy, was at 8 o'clock. Well, Donny showing up somewhere at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning in high school is not conducive to anything good happening or me showing up. Well, that's what happened. I didn't show up, missed my match, forfeited my match, and got put into the consolation round. Well, I won every match in the consolation round until I made it to the consolation championship. And then I got beat by a guy that played at Minot Ryan, who in 1981 won the state championship. So I got beat in the consolation championship by a guy that actually won the North Dakota State High School Class A tennis championship. Had I focused on that, I think I could have been halfway decent at it. But Judy, I also had a little bit of John McEnroe in me where some rackets got broken. The temper thing, how that goes. And, all of a sudden you wrap your racket around a pole. And back then it was wooden rackets. It wasn't these graphite rackets.
All right, we're going to do a quick fast forward for folks on his John McEnroe thing, because he also thought the John McEnroe thing carried over to the golf course because he was out golfing with our dad. My dad's like, oh my God, he's cussing up a storm like crazy. And my dad's like, God, he's not even on the tee box yet. What is he swearing?
Judy, I was trying to get my hoodie off and I got my arms tangled up and it turned into like this straitjacket thing. And I'm like trying to, and all of a sudden my dad's like, what the heck's going on? And he turns around and here I am. Almost falling over, trying to get the hoodie off.
I have to say one other thing too, because we weren't the most athletic kids, but we did like to try out everything, and we would get very inspired by what we saw on TV, whether it was football or whatever, thinking we could do all these things. The Olympics were on, right? And then all of a sudden, we were going to the Summer Olympics every Tuesday night. We thought we were Olympians. There was a whole bunch of stuff that we would try everything, and at some point, there's always a crossroads that you come to where you recognize you're either going to be good or you're not going to be so good, right?
That's exactly right. And Judy, I found out a long time ago that, not good at certain sports, and then found out that actually if I work at it and focus on it and train and do all the right things, that I'm still not good. Maybe get a little bit better. And then you kind of find out, okay, what else in life can I do? I'm not going to be a pro athlete. But back to the Summer Olympics thing, You and I would go to those Summer Olympics. I think it was like on Tuesday nights or something up at Magician Track and Field area up there by Magic City campus. You and I would go there on Tuesday nights, and we would come home with a plethora of ribbons that we had won because we were, again, watching Olympics on TV, 1976 Olympics. And then all of a sudden after that, we're showing up and, kind of doing our own thing. And then it was later in high school where we found out that, oh, okay, when we're showing up on a Tuesday night with, a sparse field of competitors that were okay. But if you show up, in high school or junior high and try out for the track team, that, okay, yeah, that's right. I'm not good.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And you
suck.
don't make the team if you're not good, right? I
Right.
mean, that was a time when you didn't make the team if you weren't good enough.
So anyway, I want to transition to high school football, playing for Minot High. And I didn't play. I played my sophomore year, did not play my junior year, and then played my senior year. And I think what happened my junior year, I'll tell you exactly what happened, is I actually did try out for the team. And the first or second day of practice, I'm a DB, I'm safety or cornerback or whatever. A big running back comes through the line. And this guy from Minot High is like 6'2", 220. He's a big guy. I'm 5'9", all of 165 when I'm wet. So anyway, I thought, oh, okay, well, I've seen this on TV. I'm going to use my head. Which nowadays, when you watch it, it's don't use your head, use your shoulder, do proper tackling. But back in the day, I went in and I bent down to tackle the guy, leading with my head. Well, he was running and one of his knees clipped me in the head and I fell backwards, almost was knocked out. And then my neck hurt. And then I'm like kind of just wobbling off the field. And the coach is like, Schneider, what's going on? The next day I quit. That hit was so hard and I hurt my neck and I wasn't getting any sympathy from the coaches. Again, this is the 70s back in the day where it's like, get your ass back out there. Oh, you got a little boo-boo? Get back out there. Well, the boo-boo was on my neck and I did not get back out there. So that ended football my junior year. Well, my senior year, Judy, I'm going to get into it. I start training. I go, there's a couple of guys and I that meet up a couple of nights a week. We go over to Minot High. We're weightlifting. I'm running every night. I am 100% getting into shape for football my senior year. And the folks are on board with this too. And we had a couple of practices, and I don't know if you remember this, but Dad was a police hypnotist, had the lie detector, chief of detectives for the Minot Police Department. Well, Dad's going to hypnotize me for football to help me. And you kind of already know where this is going to go. In
You're
fact,
going to walk like a chicken?
Judy, you saw the outcome. You saw the outcome so Dad hypnotizes me. And it's weird because, you may or may not believe in hypnosis, but he did it with a ballpoint pen. So he would hold up this pen and have you just stare at the end of it and then hypnotize you. And again, whether you believe it or not.
Are you sure it wasn't a sobriety test?
Yeah, it might have been that. And I failed both. So anyway, I got grounded. No, I'm kidding. That didn't happen. But anyway, so he hypnotizes me. The focus of the hypnosis is two things. One is to remember every play in the playbook, which I already told you I was good at that, had studied with that. And, kind of weirdly, who helped me with that? I don't know if you know this either. Who helped me memorize the playbook? Mom.
Really?
Mom sat on the couch in the living room and would call out, or say something, and then I would call the play. So again, as weird, our mom, not knowing anything about sports.
Yes. Well, or English and and even reading.
And cheering for the wrong team. And maybe this is why I didn't have a career as a quarterback, but, because I have my German mom helping me. But anyway, she's helping me memorize the plays. That's Dad's, hypnosis focus is the plays and to throw tight spirals. Well, that's a physical thing. So we're talking mental, we're talking physical. Well, the mental thing worked out great. We had actually a practice down in Bismarck. I think we scrimmaged against Bismarck High or Mandan. You guys came down for that. And yeah, the hypnosis worked halfway. I had every play memorized fantastically well.
Did you walk up to the line, though, and say, "Was ist los?" You said, call the play in German.
I'm
kidding.
Drei. No. So anyway, it worked out great in regards to the playbook. Did not work out well with the spirals. I remember we had a little sprint out where I ran out and the fullback ran out and it was a 5-yard pass and it looked like a wounded duck, almost end over end. It was so horrible. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then that kind of knocked the whole confidence, out of my head in regards to the hypnosis thing. Although, Judy, I swear to God, it worked with the play calling. Real quick, back to our neighbor, the guy that lived right next to us. And he played sports as well at Minot High. Well, I always tell people, and this is a true story, and it's a spin story from Donny, but it's a true story. Judy, I was the top senior quarterback for the largest high school in the state of North Dakota, 1979. True statement. Well, you peel away that layer, and then, the reality is that I was actually beat out by a junior who happened to be our neighbor. So again, me being the top senior quarterback at the biggest high school in the state of North Dakota didn't really mean anything because I wasn't the starter. Our neighbor was actually the starter and played. But again, kind of just a cool little thing that I can spin. But kind of weird too that, neighbors living right next to each other are the starting and the backup quarterback for Minot High School football.
And never practiced together.
No. I
Right?
helped. He was a baseball player, a really
Right.
good baseball player, and I
Mhm.
helped him a little bit with baseball, and we'd go outside and play catch with baseball, and he was a pitcher. So
Were you the
again,
catcher?
I was
No, I'm kidding.
Judy. Yeah, again, in this scenario, I didn't have to throw anybody out. I was just catching the ball, doing nothing else. But yeah, I was the catcher. So I helped him with baseball, but he and I, never practiced together with football. And then senior year, we're playing football, and we a couple of games in, and one day we're practicing. And I'm walking out to practice. You know this story well. And I hate this story. This is the end of Donnie's high school career for all intents and purposes. Walking out to practice, back then padded practices, there were no pads. Well, we had to walk out behind the high school, then over to the practice field, and you had to go through a couple of parking lots. Not paying attention, classic Donnie story, stepped off a curb in the parking lot and hurt my knee and did some ligament damage on my knee and had to get carried into the locker room, had to go to the hospital, Trinity Hospital. Dad had to show up. I'm still in my football gear. This is like you see on TV where they're cutting off, they're
Oh,
cutting
yeah,
off
they're
my face
crying.
mask.
Oh, wait,
What?
no. They're crying.
Oh,
They're
yeah, no
crying.
crying. No, crying, Judy. Crying was at Perkett. There's no crying when you're at high school.
All right.
But that was, again, the end of the career at that point, and not a good story to tell because, and you know what's sad about that? What's super sad about that is that a couple of weeks later, our starting quarterback, our neighbor, got hurt, and then they had to put in the third string quarterback, which sadly, that would have been me if I wouldn't have been hurt and I would have been playing in a varsity football game as the starting quarterback, which would have been phenomenal. But I missed that opportunity because of stepping off a curb and hurting myself. And again, now when I tell that story, it's this super embarrassing story.
It is. You could have been Nick Foles of Class 5A basketball. Football. Oh, you could have been Nick Foles leading them to the championship.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, weirdly, just a few short weeks later, right? So this is totally strange, is I was playing in the powderpuff football game. I was a junior and I was the quarterback, and you were announcing the game because his little broadcasting little thing went way back then, but he was announcing the game. And sadly, every time I threw a pass, he would say, "It's the Hindenburg." And I'm like, okay, not the Hindenburg. And he was a senior, so he was cheering for his senior team and calling the game like some of the announcers do today when they're homers. But anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm playing quarterback, and all of a sudden, and it's supposed to be powder puff football, not tackle football, but here come the seniors. Get her! And they come running, they charge the line, and boom, they pile on. Sadly, I'm carried off the field in a stretcher, just like you. And I ended up at the hospital too, a few weeks later. So I thought that was odd.
A lot of our stories mirror each other, and we have these kind of twin stories. And I think if you watch our podcast, some of the ones in the past and some of the ones upcoming, that a lot of situations we have similar stories. But you're right. I was the PA announcer. I'm up in the booth. It's my first exposure. And I love the way you say little broadcasting career or little broadcast. It turned out to be pretty big.
Yeah,
You really
it did,
like
it
that
did.
word little when you're talking about things.
Yeah,
little
little man, little
little
broadcaster.
broadcasting, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's turned out to be a pretty big career for me, just FYI. So I'm up in the booth, professional broadcaster as a senior in high school, and they give me the PA microphone. Not a good thing to do. And I had fun calling that game. But I do remember when you got hurt, and I was cheering for the seniors. I'm a senior, and all my friends are seniors and whatnot. And I know some juniors and, hang out with some of the juniors and some of your friends. And you're the quarterback, and you think that I would have some loyalty to you. And I didn't. Although, you know what? I loved calling that game because you were playing in it. And then there was that big hit where, again, it was the blitz. It was the blindside hit, whatever
Yep.
it was. And then I can't remember exactly how I called it, but it might have been like the Joe Frazier. And down goes Frazier, except for down goes Schneider. And then, at first it was kind of like, oh my gosh, we got an injury on the field, and we're kind of laughing about it. Well, then all of a sudden, here comes the ambulance. And all of a sudden, here comes the stretcher, and the crowd grows silent. And then it's just like you see on TV when they're wheeling you off. The several hundred spectators in attendance, applauded you. And then you
Yep.
might have even, from the stretcher,
I wiggled my toes. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't that big of a hit. I have one more story, and it's one that I find kind of funny that you decided to leave out, but it was what happened to your basketball career, right? Because you never talked about the basketball career where you sabotaged yourself, but we had this party. It was a 5-day rager. I know you like to refer to it as our little Woodstock when our dad was at lie detector school. But anyway, the answer to the question was classic when our dad asked you if you'd been drinking because you were all excited about your basketball camp.
Dad gets on my face and he goes, "Did you drink? Did you drink at the party?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Are you sure?" I go, "Yeah, no, I didn't drink." "You didn't have one sip of beer at that party?" And I said, "Well, maybe I sipped a little bit of foam."
That's where I think the most classic answer and the end to everything for you was foam drinkers don't go to basketball camp.